Welcome to the Vintage Ballers Podcast. I'm your host, Brad Coreno, and on this episode, we're going to have former NBA veteran Keith Kloss on the show. Keith attended Central Connecticut State University, where he still holds an NCAA Division I record for most average block shots per game. Keith then played in the NBA for 3 seasons for the Los Angeles Clippers. So without further ado, please welcome Keith Kloss. But I appreciate you coming on the show, Keith. You're someone I remember vividly from the 90s, and not just because of your college days, but obviously your Clipper days as well. So I think your name is pretty infamous with that era. Seeing that you were, your size, the way, you still have obviously the record for, most average block shots per game in NCAA Division I history. So a lot of people remember you. And back in those days, when I was a kid, we played a lot of NBA Live, and we still do. And you were one of the guys in the Clippers we always remember. So it's funny, like me and my buddy still played NBA Live 2000, and Keith Kloss is one of those names that everyone knows. I think Lamar's in that team, Candyman, all those guys. So
yeah.
So it's cool having you on the show, and I appreciate you taking the time to do this. So
right on.
Let's start off. You were born in Connecticut. Is that where you were raised?
No. I moved to Los Angeles when I was 5.
Okay. When did you fall in love with the game of basketball?
Oh man, I've loved the game as far back as I can remember. My father played high school basketball, against Rick Mahorn. So in the projects in Hartford, Connecticut, where I'm from originally, the Beverly Square housing projects, that's all we did. You either play football or you play basketball. And, I was always following my dad out to the basketball court. So, I even had the hoop attached to my door in my room, So all I knew was basketball. And when we couldn't get on the court with the older guys, or if we couldn't even get on the courts, period, we just played crate ball. Myself, Marcus Camby, he was the neighbor that lived downstairs from me.
Really?
So so that's what we did. Mike Adams, NBA vet.
Yep.
His family lived a couple buildings over. So that's what we did. That's what we knew.
Did you have a favorite team or player growing up?
Yeah, my favorite player was Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Still is, all time. That's why I wear number 33.
I feel he never gets the respect he's due. I feel like he never really, you don't hear him in the GOAT conversations very often. It's always LeBron and Jordan. But I'll tell you what, Kareem, he obviously his hook shot was basically unguardable. And 5 championships and all-time NBA leading scorer. He was,
6 championships.
6 championships. Correct me. You're right. Yep. So yeah, he was. It's neat to hear you say that, because I feel he kind of gets overshadowed, even though he's the all-time leading scorer. But
right.
he was a phenomenal talent, and obviously a transcendental talent, really.
Absolutely. Much love and respect to the Cap.
Yep, absolutely. So So I take it, were you a Showtime Lakers fan, or were you?
Yes,
okay.
I was. All through my childhood, and up until the day I signed that contract with the Clippers, I bled purple and gold. And it was my goal to play for the LA Lakers. Going to Lakers games when I was a kid, getting a chance to meet everybody from the Showtime era, Kareem included. That's what it was about for me. And I told him, even during a school presentation one day, I got up there in a little mock-up jersey and, gave my presentation. I'm 7'2" tall. I play center for the Los Angeles Clippers. I am Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. That's what I knew, and that's what my goal was to become an NBA player and play for the LA Lakers. But as things worked out, they were stacked already at every position. I played for them in the Summer Pro League.
Oh, you did?
I was an undrafted rookie free agent, and I played with them in the Summer Pro League. Myself, Kobe, Derek Fisher, Jimmy King from the Fab Five.
Yep, remember Jimmy King?
James Forrest, Ace Custis, there are a lot of great players. C.J. Bruton out of Australia, to name another one, and they didn't have enough room on the roster. So one day after a game, I'm walking back to the locker room with Kobe, and Bill Fitch was sitting at the table courtside with Elgin Baylor.
Wow.
Young man, if you're not signed with the NBA team at the end of this summer, you're going to be in the Los Angeles Clippers uniform. I said, oh, okay, thanks, coach. And I elbowed Kobe in the red zone, like, yeah, right, fool, this is Lakers. But not knowing that the roster was already stacked. So if they did invite me to camp, it would just be as an extra body, you know.
At that time, I
The
think what
Clippers
they had
came.
Elton Campbell. I mean, obviously Shaq. Yeah, they were loaded.
Yeah, yeah, oh yeah. Sean Rooks,
John Rooks. That's
you
right.
know, hmm yeah, they were stacked.
So let's go back to your college career. You know, what in high school do you have a growth spurt at a certain time, or when did you realize that okay, this is going to be something I can do, for a living possibly?
Um, my freshman year of high school, I was 6'4". And
Okay.
then the summer going into my sophomore year, I grew to 6'8".
Wow.
Pissed my mom off. Pissed my mom off because all those new clothes that she
Oh
bought
yeah.
me, I couldn't fit. You know, so I was flooding and I was sagging at the same time. She said, "I'll be damned if you're gonna wear these clothes." When she saw how bad I was looking, she had to go. She had no choice but to go find a 28 slim. You know, that was long enough for me. Uh, Junior year, I came in at 6'11". Senior year, 7'2", and then I maxed out my freshman year of college and hit 7'3".
Wow. So did you know, going into college, what was your, at that point, Keith, did you think like, I can make it to the association one day, or were you just focused on what you're doing at that moment, as far as your
Oh no,
freshman?
no, my mind was always on the NBA. And college was just the necessary steps for me to prepare for that.
Okay. That's what I was wondering. And, you
Yeah.
had obviously had a pretty good college career. And like I said earlier in the podcast, Keith is number one in NCAA history, Division One NCAA history in average block shots. So he to this day, which is a heck of an accomplishment. And I don't know if that'll be broken anytime soon. So
Few people have gotten close.
who was got closest in the last 20 years?
Fernando out of Mississippi State. I can't remember his first name.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, because I mean, obviously you had guys like I think Okafor was a pretty good shot blocker back in college, but those guys weren't at your level as far as almost 6 blocks per game.
Yeah,
That's video game stats right there.
yeah.
Okay, so now we go into 96. As you were saying, you're undrafted free agent, rookie free agent. What was your thought process, that entire time? Lakers, 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 or was there any other team that you thought I could fit in with this team?
I thought I'd be able to fit in with any team, but of course you want to play for the home team. Um, the Clippers weren't even on my radar. I and I went to one Clippers game as a kid. Well, a great uncle took me to a Clippers game for my 18th birthday. They were playing against the Houston Rockets. Um, I go down after the game and I ask Dominique Wilkins for his autograph. I say, "Hey, Neek, it's my 18th birthday. Can I get an autograph?" And he looks at me, gives me a funny look, and just nods his head no and waves me off. He just keeps going through the tunnel. And Hakeem Olajuwon was standing behind him and just had this puzzled look on his face, like, "Wow, did that just happen?" And I told Dominique, I said, "Don't worry. Um, one day I'm going to be in the NBA and you're going to want my autograph, bitch." You know. And the funny thing is, 3 years later, I'm in the NBA. We're playing against the Houston Rockets. Olajuwon walks up to me. He said, "Hey, you're that kid that told Dominique you're going to be in the NBA." He said, "Look
You
at you. You
remembered?
made it." Yeah.
Wow.
He said, "Look at you. You made it. Congratulations."
Now
So
that's a heck of a story.
yeah, yeah. You know, um, Leading up to the draft, I had gone to several workouts: Boston, Miami, Portland, Seattle, uh, and Seattle and Philly. They were, ringing the phone, leading up to the draft and on draft night, saying that they were going to pick me. And so I'm excited. I'm back in Connecticut where I've been training with my man Sam Romanella, and I'm excited, man. Friends and family that are there, they're excited. The picks are coming, the picks are going. They're picking other people, and I'm holding on to faith. They said they're going to get me, and the end of the draft comes, my name isn't called, and it was devastating at the moment, you know, but I said, okay, I've just got to show everybody, you know, it's just going to be a revenge tour for me. And Lakers picked me up, and that's exactly what it became. It became for me my personal revenge tour, where I was going out there trying to torch, everybody they put in front of me, trying to demoralize them in every way. Kobe was a great teammate. He was, making sure I got the ball as often as possible and just let me go to work inside, outside, and just telling me get him, because he knew, he knew that I could play, and coaches, fortunately, they gave me that freedom to showcase my talents, and I come from an era where you have a traditional big man, but I wasn't a traditional big because I grew up playing on the perimeter, and I was a 6'11" two-man in AAU. Andre Miller was my point guard.
Oh, wow.
Aaron Maxey out of Providence was our 6'5" small forward. You know, I had no problem bringing the ball down the court, handling the ball. I love presses, facing the press, because I get to cross somebody up, break their ankles, flip a double, drop dimes, pull up. That was just my game. Basically, this era right now, with the bigs being on the perimeter and some of them being ball handlers, this is the era that my game best suits. This is where I would have thrived, instead of them trying to force me down low to battle against those heavyweights.
It's interesting because I feel I have certain players I have on the show say the same thing. They say, my talents would have been more suited for this current era than, back 20, 25 years ago, when you had the traditional Patrick Ewings and Shaqs and Olajuwon and those guys who kind
Yeah,
of lived in, although
David
Olajuwon,
Robinson.
although Dream could do everything, but he's a different cat. But
He was amazing.
he was my all-time favorite athlete, actually. And he's just I could do a whole podcast on him alone, but yeah, Keith,
Brad,
going against
he was
him,
one of my favorite. He was one of my favorite players to play against.
what was it like to
because I
play
got
against him?
it was phenomenal because the footwork was impeccable. And he was like me, a guard in a big man's body, but he was so polished, in every aspect. He had no flaws. And so sometimes it was, okay, I got to stop this guy. I can't pay too much attention, you know, in admiration,
Yep.
because we're trying to win a game. You know what I mean? But it was an amazing time playing against him.
I mean, was there anything you could do defensively against that guy? It seems like there's nothing anybody could really do to just slow him down.
The timing, just I'm a shot blocker. I'm a defensive minded person, so it was all about timing. That was the best thing that I could do, is just try to time him. And he got me in that dream shake a couple times, and it was like, okay, just be patient, and it's gonna come. And so, being patient, he went with the up fakes and didn't fall for him, stayed right there, like, okay, yeah, all right, boom, get the block, fast break the other way.
Wow.
And he was a class act, hey, good defense, you know.
I remember
That was a nice shot. He was just that kind of. He was a nice guy on the court. He was a killer, but he was a nice guy.
I was going to say that, like, it's funny that the story you just told, because I remember Shaq was talking about how one interview I watched of Shaq, he talked about the first play of the game in the 95 finals, Keith, I think he gave him like a bow or something. And Olajuwon just laughed and said, nice shot, big fella. And then
Yeah.
next play, he gives him like that dream shake. And Shaq's like, I couldn't shake this guy. Like, I couldn't rattle him. He was just,
Right.
the dream was very different, but that's really cool. The story with him and Dominique is interesting to me. And the fact that he remembered you and then you got to face him, that's a great story right there. So going into your rookie year, what was it like? Did you know So, when the Clippers picked you up, how did that all play out with Bill Fitch and those guys?
Uh-huh. Well, Bill Fitch, it was like I said, it was a different time. It was a different time in the game, and they didn't believe in playing rookies. Bill Fitch was a stickler for that. He wasn't going to play you unless your name was Larry Bird. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Can't blame him for that. But the overall feel of the organization at the time was so strange because we had a lot of talent on our roster. We had guys that could play. Brent Berry, great athlete. Eric Piatkowski, great shooter. Lloyd Vaught was dealing with some injuries, so we didn't get to play with him much. But Rodney Rogers, Lamont Murray, Puvich, and Derek Martin. I can go on. We had talent, guys who could Lorenzen Wright, God rest his soul.
Yep.
Guys who could play the game. And it just seemed like management wasn't not managed. Well, yeah, a lot of the management wasn't. They just weren't into a winning culture. The culture was just different back then. It was we played for Donald Sterling, and that was just such an odd thing. Um, it got to the point where we were the laughing stock of the NBA, and guys were just looking for ways out.
Wow.
And the guys that came in, they just had the attitude of, all right, I'm going to just get my numbers while I'm here, and then I'm out of here. Get my numbers and I'm gone. So, those of us who were inked in for long-term deals, like mine was 5 years, um, I wanted to win. I wanted to do everything I could to help turn things around. And I thought I'd get the opportunity to, but it just didn't ever materialize that way. There were times when people in management would come down and pull a guy off the court, get a guy pulled out of the game. And I had never seen that before. Never seen that. I didn't know that they could do that.
How did that work out exactly?
But if you were in a doghouse, if you did something to tick them off and you were out of favor with them, they just have someone come down, whisper in the coach's ear, and you're back on the bench.
Wow.
I saw it happen. I saw it happen. A lot of the blame fell on the shoulders of Elgin Baylor, and wrongly so. Elgin wanted to win. Elgin brought in great pieces for us to help us win. But, the rest of the management team, Sterling included, they weren't on board with that. So they did everything they could to keep us near the bottom of the pile year after year.
Now, what was the purpose of that in their minds? Is it to get a higher lottery pick, or what was the reason?
Yeah. It was all about the lottery picks, and then being able to either trade those pieces off later.
Okay.
And just to keep the money in house to not have to pay players.
I gotcha.
Yeah. Derek Anderson came over from Cleveland.
Yep, I remember that.
I said, man, why in the hell would you come here? He said, man, I'm just here to get my numbers and get my next contract. And that's what he did. He averaged over 20 for us, and about 20, between 16 and 20. And he was gone the next year to San Antonio with a $56 million contract. So, he came and served his purpose. He met his goal through us. So, that was just pretty much the attitude of guys. And so after a while, it became so disheartening that those of us who were there were looking for ways to get out. I had demanded a trade. Please just trade me, get me out of here. I don't want to be here anymore. I had become so miserable with the losing, and really feeling like I wasn't able to contribute. There was a game my rookie year against Cleveland, and they had Zadrunas Ilgauskas, who's the same height as me, 7'3". Coach Fitch had subbed me in, and he said to me, you know, he was walking me to the he was walking me to the table, you know, and he said, "All right, Keith, all I want you to do is go in, play defense, block shots, rebound. That's it. I don't want you to do anything else." He tugged my shooting shirt to, you know, to stop me. He said, "I don't want you to do anything else." And I said, "Okay," you know. And I looked back, and the guys are nodding at me like, "Yeah, yeah, do it, do it." And so I check into the game, go a couple possessions. I don't do anything except, you know, play defense, grab a few boards. And then I said, "You know what? Forget this. It's now or never. You know, I got to let them know why they signed me to this contract, you know." And I just went 6 for 6 real quick, you know, from the perimeter, attacking the basket, you know, showing off my ball handling skills and everything. And, you know, as they say today, I went in my bag, you know, real quick. And the next dead ball, Coach Fitch meets me at half court. He's pissed, red as a beet, pissed off. And he cusses me out all the way back to the end of the bench. "That's not what you know, I told you to do. You were just supposed to, you know, rebound and play defense. Who the hell do you think you are? This is my team. This isn't your team." And I'm just smiling the whole way back to the bench, you know, because for that brief moment, they got to see, you know, what I was capable of doing. And my teammates laughed about it. You know, we all got a good laugh about it. I didn't play for like the next 10 or 15 games because
Wow.
of it. But yeah, yeah.
That's just crazy
So,
to me.
you know, yeah, yeah. And that was just life in the NBA with the LA Clippers, you know?
I mean, for an organization like that, and I'm from Cleveland, so it's funny you brought up Big Z because he's beloved here, and that was actually his rookie year too because he was
Yeah.
injured before then, so that was the first time he had played. And Sean Kemp was on that team, and it was interesting. Derek Anderson was on that team actually. So we have the Browns here, and for years we're having a good year this year, but for years the Cleveland Browns were a laughing stock, much like the Clippers, and that losing culture, the fan base almost becomes apathetic to it, and I feel like the players in some way they don't.
Right.
It's just like you're coming here to lose. Again, now the Browns are starting to turn it around. The Clippers obviously have turned it around too. They have a much better squad nowadays, but for a while there, you're right. The Clippers it was just one of those franchises that nobody paid attention to. And and they did have a lot of talent. You had Ron Harper back in the day and Danny Manning and Mark Jackson.
Mm-hmm.
You got your
Ken
squad,
Norman.
Ken Norman, all those guys, and then of course your squad, you added, they had Lamar Odom for a little bit. So, I mean, there was talent there, but it just seemed like it never panned out.
Right, right. And it was just really, really frustrating because we did everything in our power as players to turn things around. You know, there were times where we would have team meetings, players only meetings, and you know what, screw this. Let's just get out here and let's play. Let's play. Let's play our asses off and forget what they're talking about. Let's win this game. You know, everybody's laughing at us. This is sick. You know, and management will still find a way to throw a wrench in the machine. So
It just seems like certain culture, certain organizations, for at least for the time being, every organization has a chance to turn it around, of course, but there's just certain organizations for a period of years who get stuck in that rut. And again, like you said, the Clippers back then seemed like they were one of those organizations that just didn't go anywhere. But that's a shame because you guys had so much talent. And like you said, to hear the story about being benched for 10 or 15 games after going 6 for 6, after what you did, it just kind of tells you what the culture was all about there.
yeah, it was, and it sucked, man. It was really, really hard.
What do you think?
Um,
Looking back, Keith, what would you have done to change the culture there? Like if you and the players had your way, what would have been done?
what would have been done? We would have just, they players have more power today than we did back then. You know, um, the players' union is a lot stronger now, especially. So they're able to get through to management in a way that we were never able to. You know, they can. It's almost like they can tell them to screw off.
Mhm.
You know, and get out of the way. We didn't have that. You know, maybe on other teams, but our team, we didn't have that. And again, other teams didn't have the problems that we were having either. You know, because they were thriving, they were doing well. Players were generally happy, you know, with the rest of the organizations. At least in my conversations with my friends over the years, they were happy, you know, and they were glad that they weren't an LA Clipper. Uh, but I think standing up to management, you know, that could have been something different that we could have done, but uh, it was just a different time, you know, and nobody really nobody was really in that mind frame to do something like that, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I spoke out a couple times and another 15 game DNP,
Wow.
you know what I'm saying? So, I mean, I got excluded from the team picture because I wore my hair in a mohawk.
Did you really? They
Yeah,
excluded you from
yeah.
the team picture?
Yes, sir. Chris Ford.
Wow. I remember Chris for you.
Chris Ford. Yeah, he was a dick. He was a he was a he was a he was a straight up dick. You know, I had no problem saying that. And he made my time there miserable for that year and a half, that season and a half that I had him. You know, he was just he was just a disgusting dude to play for. You know, and we really questioned. All of us really questioned if he knew what the hell he was doing. You know, it was just a sad time. You know, but yeah, I got excluded from the team picture because I had my hair in a mohawk, and it was braided on the side, and I had a mohawk in the middle. And you see today, what are guys wearing their hair? You know, they're wearing a mohawk.
Oh
You
yeah.
know, they're dyeing. They've got them dyed all kinds of different colors.
I mean, look at
You know, and
Birdman. Yep. Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Yep.
yeah. And nobody bats an eye at it.
Mm-mm.
You know, but back then I did it, and I was uh I was told I was causing a distraction. And the question that was asked to me was, "Who do you think you are, Dennis Rodman?" You
Wow.
know, and all I was doing really was honoring my Native American heritage. You know, my grandfather, and it was completely taken out of context and disrespected. And, you know, that's when I said, "Okay, get me out of here. I don't want to be here." You know, and that was a lockout year. You
Okay.
know, so yeah, you go back to 98, 99, you don't see me in the team picture, and that's why.
Wow. I never knew that
Mhm.
story. I mean that
Yeah,
I suppose that it's not shocking considering the franchise how what it was back then, but still when you hear these stories firsthand, it's just I don't know. That's a shame it was like that, and it's a shame that you had that type of experience with them.
yeah. We had an owner that liked men, so you know he would flirt with the players openly in the locker room. You know, he come in right as we were getting out of the shower, and you know, impeccable timing it seems. You know, every game he'd come in with his little group of cronies and you know disperse them throughout the locker room of different guys as we're coming out the shower and trying to get dressed. There were some pretty inappropriate situations that happened, some inappropriate behavior, you know, where you can definitely say that Donald Sterling could have been charged with sexual harassment.
Wow.
You know, there, yeah, yeah, that's what we were up against. You know, you'll never hear a guy say that. I'll be the guy to say it. You know, but that's what we were up against playing for the LA Clippers in the late '90s. You know, I ran into a guy. I'm in Texas now, and I'm playing in this adult league, and you know, just stay in shape. And ran into a guy that played for the Clippers briefly uh, in the mid 2000s. I can't even remember the kid's name, but you know, I said, man, you were there with Sterling too. And he just looked at me and shook his head, like, oh man. I said, so how was it in the locker room with him? And he just, man, he said, look, because of that, I just quit basketball. He said, that experience alone, I quit basketball because I thought that all owners were going to be like that,
Wow.
And that's a sad thing. That's a sad thing.
Was it surprising? I'm sure it wasn't, but when everything that came out in 2014 with him, was that something you already knew, 15, 20 years before that?
Oh, yeah, yeah. And I had spoken to other NBA personnel from other organizations, during my brief time, and especially during the All-Star 2000 up in the Bay Area, and we're talking about Sterling and his behavior. And everybody was saying the same thing, that they're just waiting for him to to say something cross about them, and they would expose everything that they had on them. They said they were holding on to stuff for him since the '80s.
Wow.
Yeah. And so I was surprised that it didn't come out sooner than it did.
Yeah, I mean, as someone who watched the game, Keith, I never knew much about Sterling. I knew who he was, but I just didn't pay much attention to what he was all about. And the Clippers, like you said, for many years, no one really knew what was going on. I mean, in that time, it was all Lakers, Lakers, Lakers.
Yeah.
And so when that came out, I wouldn't say it was a shocker, but it was just I never knew much about the man to begin with. So and then you
Right.
hear all these other stories come out, and it's like, wow, for that to be going on for all those years is just incredible, and not be exposed, it is definitely crazy.
Yeah. People were worried about job security back then. You know what I mean?
Yep.
I mean, so you didn't hear a lot about sexual harassment going on in the workplace. And as a man, that's something that, like, what man wants to say that he was sexually harassed by another man, let alone his billionaire boss? So that's why you never hear anything about that coming from a player, and then they're looking at, again, job security, life after basketball, wanting to stay within the association on a coaching staff. You know what I mean?
Yep.
In a front office position.
Yeah, I mean, I think
a lot of guys just.
Yeah, guys won't
A
say
lot of
anything.
guys won't say anything.
Exactly, and I could see why that would be, and I can see why they'd be, scared to come out and say something. It's definitely a shame what happened back then. And again, with 2014, I just didn't realize the extent of what was up with the Clippers as far as Sterling goes. I never knew all of that, and that was definitely an eye opener, I think, for a lot of people who don't know that situation.
Oh yeah.
So I'm sure for you guys it was probably vindication.
It most definitely was.
Yep. Now, on that,
it was vindication, but then it was like, too little, too late.
Yeah, I can see that. I mean, it's your career in LA was already, obviously tainted because of what had happened, certainly, and because the organization in general, just what.
And they spread a rumor. They spread a rumor that I was smoking crack. That's why I could never gain weight.
Are you kidding me?
I have a high metabolism, and I'm 220 pounds today, and that's how much I weighed when I was, by the time I left the LA Clippers, 220. Same size, 20 years later. So
wow.
But that, and you know what? I can't rightfully blame them for everything though, because I was an alcoholic back then. I was a young kid just having fun with life, and I let the drinking get out of control sometimes, and I allowed the frustrations to take it a step further, to where, I mean, my experience with that organization had me to the point where I had to take a drink before I went to practice, just because of the crap that I knew I was going to, be dealing with once I got there. I drank on the bench, and just because it's like, hell, I don't want to be here. This is so depressing, and I just got to check out, take my mind elsewhere. And so For me, I chose to drink. Try to drink it away, and that backfired on me. But those are all great life lessons that I get to I got a chance to grow from. So here
Certainly.
I am, 13 years sober. You know, and mentoring players and just trying to help people you know do what's right for themselves in their lives, helping people with their alcoholism and their addiction problems. So I turned something that was once my biggest weakness into my greatest strength, my greatest asset.
That alone, Keith, kind of turning in, something that was back then kind of a demon for you into a blessing now, and now you're helping other people.
Yeah.
That's what life's all about, in my opinion. Because I had, I've struggled with my own mental health issues over in the past, and I've got, went to therapy and got help. And I'll tell you what,
Mm-hmm.
like, now I help other people and try to get them to where, I've gotten to, and you get
Right.
through anxiety and depression and things like that. So when you're dealing with addiction or any kind of, mental illness or whatever it might be, it's important, not only that you know that there's people around you who've experienced the same thing, but people who are mentors and can kind of bring you through what you're
Right.
going through. So I think you're probably a mentor for many people, especially considering that you are a former
Yeah.
NBA player and you're not afraid to come out and tell your story.
Yeah. No, my social media, I'm an open book. Especially for that reason, because as a professional athlete, society places us on this pedestal, and that separates us from the rest of humanity. When at the end of the day, there's no difference between you and I except the dollar signs that attached to our paycheck. That's it. You know what I mean? I put my pants on the same way. I eat the same way.
It's
It's
true.
just that you know, we're just separated, unfortunately, at times. And when it's really there's no difference at all if you look at it. You know,
No, it's
so
absolutely true.
and I use my experiences to help other people. I share what I'm going through. My trials and tribulations, what I've gone through. How I've overcome them to give hope to the next person. Hey, look, this guy, multimillionaire at one point in time in his life, made some poor choices, went through a lot of things that, that normally would have taken somebody out. And he persevered, leaned on God's strength, and he's here today, to talk about it and help somebody else get through it. And that's what my life has become. It's become about, fitting myself to be of maximum service, to God and the people about me. So, every day I'm thinking of what I can do to help somebody today, even if it's just putting a smile on their face, saying something silly, something like that, then my job's done.
Mm-hmm.
If they want to open up about something uh, more in depth, then we do that as well.
I think that's awesome. It seems like you really learned a lot in the last 25 years, and especially from your, from the days back in the Clippers and going through, like you said, some of your alcoholism and everything. That takes a lot of courage to come out and talk about this stuff, because not everybody does that. And again,
Right.
I appreciate you doing that and kind of telling your story. Keith, you're going back to your final year in LA. I think you guys had Lamar Odom that year. Did
Yeah.
you see with Lamar? Did you see anything? Back then, like, because he was a star in college at Rhode Island, and I guess
Yeah.
when I look back at
Yeah.
him, he had a pretty awesome career in many ways. But did you see his career going like that? Did you know how talented he was? Did you see him winning championships
Oh,
later on?
hell
Yeah.
yeah. He was the most talented guy, on the floor. And we I viewed him as another, the second coming of Magic Johnson.
Okay. Wow.
Because that's just that's the skills level that he had. Well, as far as his ball handling, his court vision, his passing, you know, he was more athletic and he was able to do more than Magic. Uh, Better shooter, you know. But you know, hey, we all have shit that we have to go through.
Yep.
It just sucks that he had to make that pit stop with us first. You know, was great to see him win a championship. That was awesome. I was happy for him because we all knew how much the kid loved the game. We all love the game. We all want to win championships. It just sucks to see. It just sucks to see the other issues, the off the court issues that were happening. We were aware of them even back then.
Okay.
I wasn't in a position to say anything because I'm a drunk. I was sitting at the end of the bench drinking some gin during the game. What am I going to tell them? I can't tell them anything. And that downward spiral when all that negative press started to hit the waves. Of course, I'm sober at this time, and I'm trying to find him. I have been trying to reach out to him before then. And just to see where he was at, because I knew. We all knew. I tried to find ways to reach out to him, and was never successful with it. And so when the shit hit the fan, I really went into desperation mode of trying. Okay, I got to find this guy. I'm reaching out to the league. The leagues with no help. You know, and to this day, I still haven't been able to contact him. But it would have been great just to help this dude. And his bounce back has been great. I thank God that he was able to bounce back from that.
Yes.
And somewhat get his life back under control. He had a tough coming up. And it's not to excuse anything because there are kinds of people who face adversity and tough situations growing up, and they don't have the same issues that myself or Lamar would have. They persevere, they nose to the ground, and they get it done. I know tons of people like that, who could have just thrown in the towel, but they were just bosses about it with their attitude and with their focus. So it's definitely great to see him functioning again. Functioning and happy, so healthy. So I'm definitely grateful about that. Delonte West.
Mm-hmm.
Oh man, that was so heartbreaking. And I was thinking, man, I gotta find this kid. I want to find him, and I want to be there for him. I want to help pick him up and get him back on his feet, help him get the help that he needs. And thank God for a guy like Mark Cuban. Mark Cuban, man, that's amazing, phenomenal, and grateful for people like him who were able to step in when he did and the way that he did to assist his former player. That was awesome. And hopefully Delonte can get back on his feet and address his demons as well and grow from them and live a prosperous life where he's happy, healthy, and thriving.
Yes. I mean, Keith, Delonte being a Clevelander, he's beloved here, and he was only here for a few seasons, but people fell in love with him because he was very genuine, and he was one of those guys that you couldn't help but not like. He was just he's a great guy, and we knew he had obviously his issues, but I think people, even nowadays, you'll still hear people here bring him up and wish him the best of luck, and they hope to see him back on his feet one day. So Delonte is definitely someone who has we all hold him in our hearts here in Cleveland. So to hear you bring him up definitely means a lot to all of us. There's a lot of players I feel who, because of someone like you coming out and telling your story, a lot of players I feel now are more comfortable coming out telling their stories, whether it's addiction or mental health or whatever it might be. Kevin Love came out obviously recently, talked about his mental health struggle. So I think this is a time now where people are starting to come out more and more and say, look, I'm struggling, and it is what it is, and instead of just holding it in or not talking about it or acting like everything's fine. So again, I think you guys like you are going to help change the culture a little bit, especially in pro sports, because, for so long, people, that's not, you didn't do that. You just shut up and went on with your,
Right.
so, and that's just,
Yeah.
obviously that's not solving the problem. So I think in order for the future generations to get it right, we need to start speaking up a little bit more and telling these stories. So I'm glad you did that. And I appreciate you shouting out, Delonte, because again, we all wish him the best. And, I hope that
Mhm.
Delonte can, to get himself right, because he seems like a great guy.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So Keith, getting back to the playing days real quick here,
Mhm.
when you look at, okay, we talked about the dream, obviously. Give me 2 or 3 other guys you faced that were, that you would put on your list of toughest guys you've ever had to guard.
Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan. I had to guard him my rookie year.
Did you really guard? Wow.
In Chicago. Yeah. They were playing me at the three. Coach Fitch played me at the three, and
What was that
you
like?
know, oh man, it was nerve wracking because this is the greatest player of our era. The most dominant player of our era, and man, I was sweating bullets before I even got off the bench. In the huddle when the coach told me I was going in and that I was guarding Mike, I became a nervous wreck. And I asked him why Rodney or Lamont wasn't guarding him. He said, "Look, do you want to play or not?" I said, "Hell yeah." He said, "Okay, well you got Mike." All right. My teammates said, reassure me, "Don't worry, Slim, we got you, big fella. It's all right." We get out there. Mike sees that I'm guarding him. He automatically calls a clear out. And we're right in front of our bench. And I said, "Y'all got me?" And I don't hear anything. I said, "Hey," and I turn around real quick. Everybody's hugged up against their guy on the other side of the court. Just left me on the island, man. And
Uh,
you know, and Mike, he tried to cross me over to take me to the middle, and I cut him off. And so, I'm like, okay, here we are. It's just me and him, you know. And I'm ready. I'm in my stance, man. And he hits me with an in and out, faking that cross back middle again. And I jump like, no, you're not gonna get it. But it's an in and out move. And once I realized, that he hit me with that in and out, I'm trying to just recover, and my feet just, you know, and I go back down on one hand, and I pop up, so quick, just reflexes, because I'll be damned if I get embarrassed. And he's got the ball cocked back, way back behind his head, and I punch it. I recover in time to get, to block it, and before he could dunk it, and they called a foul on me. Said that I
oh,
hit him in the head. And I grabbed the ball and I said, "Hey, ref, that's a superstar call, man." I said, "I know the ball's the same color of his head, but how am I going to hit him in the head when it's cocked way back here?" I said, "Come on, man. I know I'm a rookie, but come on, you know." And Mike walks by and he spikes the ball out of my hand. It just, I'm like, and I said, "Really, Mike? It's like that, Mike?" And he said, "Shut the fuck up, Rook." And he just stares at me while he's chewing his gum, and he stares at me and he's walking back, to the free throw line, just staring a hole through me. And I'm just standing there like, oh man, this is just happening. Dennis comes up to me. He says, "Hey, Keith." He said, "Fuck Mike." He said, "Look, what do you want to do? We can kick his ass now. We can wait till after the game. I don't like him anyway." You know, and so I just bust up laughing, you know, and that moment right there was like, okay, let's play. So the next time down, I got Mike on the block, and I'm like, yeah, now you got to guard me. You know, take his ass and give him a nice little jump hook, hit him with his his shoulder fake, and then went with the jump hook. Now you see me backpedaling down court, and I'm looking at him like, yeah, I'm in your ass now. But of course, it didn't play out that way. But it would have been nice, to just get out there and keep going back and forth with them, because I would have opened up on them, just to go ahead and prove a point, and I was just playing for the Clippers, so.
I mean, I can't imagine
So,
being a rookie and having to guard MJ in his prime, in his
yeah,
final year when he was, on top of the world. And that's
man, cat-like reflexes. I couldn't box him out for crap on free throws. I'm I'm damn near getting lane violations trying to block him out. because
Wow.
he's so fast. And he's still beating me into position for for the offensive rebound. Like, damn, okay, what can I do? Like I said, if I could just get a lane violation, screw it. But he's still, I'm going in and he still beat me in there. So,
One of the
but it
interest,
was it was a lot of fun.
one of the interesting things about him too that when you watch The Last Dance, they talked about. I think it was someone close to him was saying how, yeah, there's a lot of guys in the NBA who are athletic and who are big and fast and strong and are talented. But they said with MJ, he was always focused. He was always in the moment. He never left the moment. He was one of
Yeah,
those guys who was always present, which is not like that for everybody.
yeah,
And they said that's what he mastered, being in the
right.
moment, which what made, and they said that's what made him so great, is that he was always in the moment. And I found that kind of fascinating, considering that you would think it's just because he's so athletic or this or that, but and obviously he was talented, we know that, but they were saying how he just always stayed in the present moment, and he just was always,
Yeah,
he was there.
yeah. He was a different kind of animal, and the only player that I can compare to him is Kobe Bryant.
Okay.
Rest in peace, little brother. That
Yep.
but Kobe was, I mean, that's 1A and 1B right there, Mike and Kobe. You know, uh, he was the only other guy that we had to compare to Mike. His work ethic, his mannerisms, everything.
Keith,
Being in the moment, being present and locked in.
when you play with Kobe, that that rookie camp, did you see him? Did you see the greatness then?
Yeah. See, I coached Kobe at the ABCD camp
Really?
when he was in high school. Yeah, yeah. I was his coach. I coached him, Jermaine O'Neal, Tim Thomas, and Lester Earl.
No
Lester
kidding.
Earl was another high school. Yeah, Lester Earl was another talent, 6'9",
I remember
who was
Lester.
supposed to go to the NBA.
Yep.
Yeah, and I had those four guys on my team, and we would run everybody. The college players were the coaches. So I was just going into my sophomore year, and we were blowing teams by 30, 40, 50 points.
Wow.
And I would make the guys run. I make them run sprints after the game because hey, that's too easy. That's too easy. You guys aren't even tired, man. Hit the line, you know. And so summer pro league, 2 years later, here I am. I'm the rookie, and Kobe's got the 1 year over me, and experience. So we blow somebody out by 30 points, and we're walking off the court, and he says, "Hey, rookie, hit the line." And I just started laughing because I remember just 2 years ago, uh, it was me telling him hit the line, and I'm running my sprints with a smile on my face, and our families are sitting together, and my mom's sitting there with his mom and dad, and his dad yells out, "Son, that ain't right, that ain't right," because and I'm running my sprints with a smile on my face. No, it's all right, it's all right. I know what it's about. He got his revenge. It's cool, you know. So when I saw him the summer before he passed. Saw him at the Drew League, and I walked up behind him. I said, "Hey man, don't you?" I said, "Hey man, don't you owe me a few laps?" And he turned around. "Oh, boss Claus, man, only you, only you could say that, man." He said, "Nah, I did my running, man. No more running. Don't you owe me some more running?" I said, "No, I think we're all squared up." I said, "Okay, cool." We just hugged it out. It was the first time I had seen him in like 15, 16 years.
Wow.
You know, uh, yeah. So um, that was the last time I got a chance to see him, interact with him, and before we lost him, I had him. I was the the Drew League ambassador to China. So I had some players from China here, from Drew League China, and I had them sign an autographed jersey uh, for the players, and a few months later, he's no longer here with us. But man,
I still,
2020, it's been a hell of a year.
I still can't
I
believe.
I, I lost a son in April 19th. So my son Gideon was stillborn, and
Oh wow.
You know,
I'm so
it's
sorry to
just,
hear that.
I've lost several family members from COVID-19. You know, I have a cousin who's struggling from it now. You know, who's in the thick of it right now, and you know, it's this year has been like a constant kick in the nuts. You know, it's had its many blessings for sure, but things have been so heavy with this pandemic in the way that it's affected not only this country but the world, and how it affects us so personally. You know, when's the last time something like this swept through? Was it polio? Was it smallpox? I mean, polio? You
Yeah, I mean,
know,
yeah, or the 1918. The flu back then. But this isn't something, at least in my lifetime, and I'm in my late 30s. I've never seen anything like this before, and this is just
right. You
a
know,
whole
not
different
I
level.
stay in. I'm always in contact with everybody in China, and they've been. You know, they quarantined. The government shut down the whole country for 60 days. You know, very limited movement, and they followed the government's rules, and they're after 60 days, you know, with precautions, wearing the mask. You know, they already wore masks prior to this because a lot of them were germaphobes, you know, and didn't want to catch anything that anybody might have, you know. So it was nothing for them to go out publicly with the mask after, you know, COVID struck. But they're back to normal. It's business as usual for them, and it has been since the spring. Whereas we're still struggling with it. You
Mhm.
know, here's the thing: I'm proud to be an American, but I can't stand Americans at times because we we take what we have for granted. You know, these rights that we have. You know, we take them for granted to the point where it's it, it's affecting the rest of the country. You know, it's affecting our neighbors. It's affecting our family members. You know, because here we are with this pandemic that's sweeping through the world, and you know, it's just burning up everything. You know, like a California wildfire. It's just raging out of control. And there are ways that we can slow it. You know, there's ways that we can combat it. And not everybody's on board because we have rights, you know, and we're totally abusing these rights sometimes, and for the most selfish reason, you know, where it's costing hundreds of thousands of lives. You know, numbers on the rise again. States are on going back on lockdown status again, and you know, um, we're selfish, we're undisciplined. You know, this is something that you would think would bring us together, and it hasn't. You know, it hasn't brought us together because unfortunately we have a lot of people. We have just as many people who don't care as we do that care, that actually care. You know, and people aren't going to take this shit serious until it hits close to home.
Exactly.
You know, one of my high school friends, she's fighting it right now. My prayers are with her as well. And I have another uh, childhood friend. She, you know, 5 months later, man, she's still dealing with the emotional, the mental effects, and it's affected her heart. You know, where she's got to go in for a procedure, and you know, I have an ex that's still dealing with the psychological effects and the physical effects of COVID-19, and you know, it's 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 devastating. You know, sorry to take away from basketball,
No,
but
I mean, this is
you know,
important.
this is just a real life thing that we're dealing with, and you know, that's bigger than sports. You
It's
know,
much
it's
bigger.
absolutely bigger than sports, man. And you know, I have to be careful with my players. I had to be careful with my family members. You know, to make sure that you know I can only protect them so much.
Mhm.
You know, as coach or as uncle, you know, or as brother or son. You know, I can only protect them so much, and I do what I can. you know. But boy, oh boy, I know you see me without my mask on right now, but you know, I got a mask, and when if I'm just walking and whatever, but any other time in public, I slang that bad boy on, and you know, um, I try to do my part, to prevent the spread, or because I'm not in control of it at the end of the day, but there's still little things that I can do, for preventative measures, and that's just what I do, you know. Okay, back to basketball.
I think overall, like we all can play a part in this, and I don't think it's really that,
Yeah, yeah.
like I feel like people just use common sense, and like there's a lot that we can do.
Common sense ain't that common.
I know that's the unfortunate part, but it's really not.
Yeah.
It's just simple steps we can take, like you said, to combat a lot of this, and I'm hoping that we'll eventually get to that point. But right now, it just seems like there are a lot of people who just don't take it seriously, and
Right. My sister was asymptomatic, and she had her ordeal, her scare for 2 weeks, and my sister's got underlying health issues. She's diabetic. She's legally blind from her diabetes. She's got congestive heart failure. Her heart's at 20%, asymptomatic. That never left the house, except to go to the grocery store maybe once a month, you know. But other than that, she, because of her conditions, she was already afraid of, being around people, being exposed to things. And then the pandemic hit, and she further isolated herself from and insulated herself from everyone else, but still ended up, you know, getting a COVID-19. So, there's, I mean, what you have people who are out there doing the right thing, who are wearing the gloves, who are sanitizing everything, and, wearing the mask and wearing the specialized mask to purify, and catch particles and whatnot. And they're still getting it one way or another, whether it's from touching something once they, you know, take a glove off or yeah, we as a people, we have to do better.
Yep.
As a nation, we have to do better. Our very lives depend on it.
Yep.
Our very lives depend on it.
In our neighbors' lives and our friends' lives, and and everyone else. And
Yeah.
I think I'm more concerned. Like with me, if I got it, I'd likely be okay. I mean, I'm not overly concerned about me, but it's my parents and some of the people around me who I'm concerned with because I see them. And that's why, that's for me, like you were saying, the people around you, it's like those are the people I'm really concerned with even more than myself, just because I'm a young, healthy guy for the most part, but my parents, for example, my dad has congestive heart failure, and it scares me to think he already had COVID. He got COVID over the summer. He had a very minor strain of it, which he was lucky, but he still had a heart attack after he had it. So again, it's one of those things where it is, it doesn't hit you.
Did I lose you?
Are you there?
Uh-oh. Okay.
There, I got you. Can you hear me?
Okay. Yeah, you have frozen. So.
Okay. Let me see. Here we go. Perfect. Yeah. So, anyways,
he had a very light strain.
Yep, he had a light strain, and he still had a heart attack afterwards. So it affected him majorly. But at the same time, he was lucky that he got through it. But it just, like you said, until it hits home with some people, you don't really fully get the impact of it. And it hit home with us pretty quickly. So, I just, so now I pretty much, I don't go out I don't really go out at all. I mean, like I used to. I pretty much, keep in most of the time. I work on my own passion projects, my career, my job. But Keith, I don't have the same life I did before, but it is what it is. And what are we going to do about it? I mean, we got to do our part for now. And, I only see a handful of people that are close to me, and that's, I travel very minimally, and that's it. So it's a shame that we all can't do more right now, and we will one day. It'll eventually turn around. But for now, I'm looking at this winter thinking, all right, I'm going to be doing a lot of podcasts and just doing my thing, but I'm not gonna expose other people around me, who I know they got it. It could be pretty bad. So I just kind of do my thing. But it's affected so many people in so many different ways, especially mental health wise is another way that
Yeah,
like you were saying,
yeah,
the psychological aspects of it. I mean, just thinking, I would love to be able to go to a NBA game or go to a concert or go to whatever. And right now it's just, I mean, it's just not the same. So it's hard being kind of trapped.
right.
But again, this is where keeping connection like this, social media, whatever it's a podcast, Skyping,
Mm-hmm.
whatever, connecting with people is so important because it does really, that's one of the few things to me that keeps me going is connecting with friends, family, etc. So,
Right.
but real quick, Keith, looking back at your career, for like my nephews, for example, who never got to see you play and didn't, don't know the name Keith Kloss, what do you want them to know about your legacy?
Love the game. I love the game, and I was a fearless defender. And I was capable offensively. I was just, in the wrong era with the wrong team.
Do is there any part of your career that you regret or like a decision that you regret or something you wish you would have done differently?
Sometimes, it's, for the most part, no. But sometimes I say, damn, I wish I had that veteran presence around me to guide me when I was going through certain situations with the organization or with the coaches. Veteran leadership is so important for these young guys to teach them how to handle the adversity, to walk through it and how to communicate what's going on with them the right way uh, without blowing their top. You know, sometimes the best thing I was able to do was just verbally explode, my feelings, my emotions of what was going on to my coaches, and you know that that didn't help. I didn't have that veteran. Hey, young fella, come here. This is how. Let me suggest you handle it this way. And that's the role I take. That's the role I've been taking. You know, because that's what was lacking for me. Back then we all looked at each other as competition for that next contract. That's what I had come to realize and understand. So there wasn't going to be too much of any kind of real leadership or mentorship or that big brother thing. You know, I found it from players on other teams, Cedric Ceballos, Tracy Murray, Brian Russell. Those are the guys that I was able to to reach out to and talk to. You know, uh, but by the time I did reach out to them, it was too late for me. I was already suspended at that point for the season, and which was some BS. They said I was out of shape. I'd never been out of shape in my life. I played basketball 24/7. I was at Venice Beach playing basketball all the time. Even during the season. You know, after a game, I go shoot some hoops at Venice Beach. After shoot around before a game, I'm shooting hoops at Venice Beach. I'm playing full court. So I was a fixture there. Plus that's where I learned to play the game. So for them to say I was out of shape was crazy. I didn't have anybody to help walk me through that process to help me understand what exactly was going on. That the fix was in for me. And like I said, what came after that was rumors that I was smoking crack. And that's why he can't gain weight. You know, that was a career killer for me.
Mm.
To get blackballed in such a way. And you see now, and let's go back to Birdman. It came out that he was a cokehead and doing this and that, but they were so quick to get him the help that he needed. You know, I'll say Elgin, God bless Elgin. He tried to give me help. He sent me to a facility, for 30 days during a lockout, and I just wasn't ready at that time. You know, but thank God for Elgin again because that guy doesn't get the proper credit that he deserves. You know, he was a scapegoat for a lot of stuff back then. Unfairly so. But the mentorship that's so needed. The veteran presence that's so needed, man. You know, and any young guy, any young rookie who's fortunate enough to get that should consider themselves to be blessed.
Mm.
You know?
What Keith, what are you up to nowadays? I mean, you're doing some coaching, of course.
Yeah, yeah. I have my own youth basketball program, Cloth Stars Elite, um, Drew League ambassador to China. Where we created a Drew League China. And I'm working on a program with or a project with some friends in China right now, where we're trying to be the bridge for USA and China basketball. Especially on the amateur side. So getting these kids the exposure that they need and the experience that they need, the cultural experience. Our kids as well as theirs, creating an exchange program for student athletes, for primarily basketball players. Having them come here and our kids go there, and helping them create relationships on an international level that are gonna be there for them as adults. Getting them out of the bubble, early, exposing them to what this world really has, and just setting them up for success in the future. You know, being a good husband. Those are the things that I'm up to. Being a good son, being a good brother, a good friend, being a good father. That's what life is right now for me. Just being good to people, spreading love and positivity. And trying to and just trying to share the experience with other people to help them through this journey called life.
Yep. Well, I mean, Keith, it seems like you have a pretty enlightened perspective on life, and a lot of that probably comes through what you went through in your life. You don't learn a lot you don't learn a lot having a cozy life. You learn a lot by going through adversity, and I think that's what anybody who's been through a lot of stuff in their life knows that. You gotta, I mean, sometimes you have to trudge through it to get to the other side, and then you realize I can use this experience to help other people, and that's exactly what you seem to be doing. I think that's great.
Thank you.
Well,
thank you.
Well, again, I want to thank you for coming on the show and taking the time to do this. And you're welcome back anytime. We'd love to have you back again. We could talk for hours about all types of stuff, but appreciate you doing this, man. And it was really good to connect.
My humble thanks.
Absolutely. So, good luck with the rest of, there's only a month left in this year. So hopefully 2021 will be better than 2020, because it's not been a good year.
Yeah, it most definitely will be.
I think it will be too.
2021, it'll be an amazing year.
Yep. I think so too. So again, man, thank you for coming on. Appreciate it. And it was great talking to you.
All right. Thanks a lot, Brad.
All right. Thanks, Keith.
All right, you be blessed.
You too.
All right.